What is up, guys? We are back for another episode of the Twin Branches podcast. With us, as always, our co-host Tyler.
What up, what up?
I am Connor. We are Norse pagans. We're happy to be here. Today, we're going to be talking about the gods and goddesses of the Norse pantheon. We're going to talk about the two tribes, the old, the new, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the good stuff.
And everything in between.
Yeah, so just real quick, again, we've talked about this every episode up to this point, but Tyler, if you don't mind going back through kind of your pantheon that you sort of do the most work with.
Yeah, so obviously I'm heavily into the Vanir space of things. I connect a lot more with the spiritual aspect of nature and the wild. I guess you could say I have a wild hair in myself.
Wild man.
So I am a wild mountain man. But Freya, Freyr, Thor, Skadi, and oh my God, it's always Fenrir. We if you haven't gone and seen the other videos that we've already posted, please go and hear what I have to say about giving anything to Fenrir. Very, very, very important that you take that with a humongous dose of caution.
You don't pray to him every morning?
No. Typically, I stick to those main four. Now, of course, doesn't mean I don't give offerings to any of the other gods, because I do. Especially Yr. I don't really have her in a part of my Patreon, but I do often give to her in times of sickness, or if there's people that I love who are in sickness. She's just she obviously an Aesir goddess of health and being a more of a medicinal entity. So, yeah, I know I didn't really go into too much detail with that.
No need to. That's fine.
But it's essentially kind of my scene. I'm a foresty type of boy.
Yeah.
What about you, Connor? What you got? Are you right?
I gotta remember. I'm looking at a screen full of gods and goddesses right now, and it's really throwing me
it's
off.
It's not like there's only a few hundred gods and goddesses.
Right.
Yeah.
So mine are gonna be Odin, of course. Thor, Freyr, Freya, Braggy. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out, but I don't know. I'm looking at a screen just covered in names, and it's really making my brain hurt. So, but yeah, with that in mind, let's get into it. We just want to kind of just a refresher course for people, anyone again that's new to the faith, or people that Christians or people with other spiritual views that are watching this channel. We want to kind of explain sort of what it's about and how polytheism works, I guess. Not so much how polytheism works, but just what we're looking at here. So I guess let's just start at the top here. We'll start with Balder.
Balder, the one of light.
Yeah, everybody's favorite.
Also known as the Christian god.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of read what it has here. We are on einarsjourney.com if you want to go to that and kind of read along with us. There are a ton of gods and goddesses on here. Some that we'll cover, some that we won't. Some that I've heard of, some that I didn't even know existed because they were talked about in that one line of that one sentence of that one book of that one story, and it's just very obscure. But so it says here, Balder is a widely beloved god in Norse mythology, known for his beauty, purity, and invulnerability. Sounds like a different god from a different religion. Revered as the god of light and goodness, he brings joy to the gods and all of existence. He's the second son of Odin. His mother is Frigg, an important deity in Germanic mythology. The most prominent story featuring Balder comes from the poetic Edda, Baldur's Draumr. In this story, Balder's having nightmares, and Odin decides to investigate this, riding to hell and resurrecting a Volva who tells him of Balder's fate. She tells him that mead is being brewed in hell for Balder's arrival, and then proceeds to tell Odin that Balder will soon die. After learning about this, Frigg sets out to make everything in the world swear to never harm Balder, except everything except for a young and harmless little plant, mistletoe. This mistletoe would ultimately be used by Loki to bring about the death of the beloved Balder, crafting it into a projectile and deceiving Hodor into throwing it, ultimately killing him. A lot to unpack there. I actually, on side note, real quick, now that since we're talking about mistletoe, I actually watched a really interesting video the other day. I cannot remember who did it, but they were talking about how mistletoe there's a weird translation on mistletoe. Like there could be a sword called mistletoe, or
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
let me look this up here. Is mistletoe native? Because I remember in the video they said mistletoe is not native to Scandinavia.
I don't think so. It could have been the root of something.
Well, it says European mistletoe. That's an interesting one. It is, yeah.
And also,
whoever did that lied to us.
Yeah, also will say it's not brewed, the mead wasn't brewed in hell, brewed in Helheim by Hel. Hel being the goddess of the underworld.
Right.
Not a bad place, not the Christian hell.
Underworld's even kind of more like afterlife. Like underworld is... Yeah. I feel like that's more so associated with like Greek and Roman.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because
paganism.
I mean, this is what the Christians knew best.
Yeah. Appropriate. So, right. So Balder. Yeah, beauty, purity, and vulnerability.
Sins, you know, all of love and all of light, right?
But yeah, so I mean, this guy was like, this was the champion of the gods, right? Like this guy was he was the prodigal son. He was the.
Oh my god.
No, like I'm just for lack of a better term, you know, like he everything loved him, everything swore to never harm him except for this one plant, and of course Loki, according to the sagas, took advantage of that, caused the death of him, and then I believe it's wasn't it Odin that went into Helheim and then asked for him to be brought back, and she said Hel told him that she would give him back if every living being, or not even I think it was every living being in the world wept.
Yes. I can't remember exactly if it was that everything would weep, but I think there was terms and conditions.
Fake pagan. Yeah, we don't have a Bible, and it's not one God, so we're not going to be able to keep up with all this.
All of the sources that we have that a lot of these gods on this list come from, taken consideration, span to about 800 years lapse, and the only one that's really setting when there was written when these pagans were still a thing, or the heathens were still a thing, is Saxo Grammaticus, which was written by the Romans, and it was pretty much like a diss track to the Germanic peoples. And so majority of this list that were
that's what it was. That's just the best fucking diss track.
Yeah, dude, but like majority of this right now is pretty much on Snorri Sturluson's prose and poetic Edda, so this is taking consideration.
Right, written by Christians for Christians.
Yeah, 200 years after the conversion of Iceland, which was the last place to be Christianized.
Right. Yeah. So very interesting.
Yeah. So it not that we're fake pagans or anything. Everybody gets this feeling. At least I was when I first started into this faith. Is like, not knowing all of the gods is something that is going to be very normal in this spirituality, because, well, you can't really know for a fact on any of these things.
Absolutely.
All you can really know is the
your
reaction.
Experiences with them.
Yeah, right. Your experiences and your feelings of them. So keep that in mind. This is very loose. We didn't really have a plan going into this episode today. We just thought it would be good to kind of talk about the gods, what is known, what maybe isn't known fully, and then even for me and Connor to learn about gods and goddesses that we may not have even read up on.
Right. I think that whenever you come into it from a Christian mindset and you go, well, I don't have the answer, in Christianity, if someone doesn't have the answer, they're a fake Christian. They don't know. Their faith is weak, and you really can't. I don't think that's the case at all when it comes to paganism, because it's the religion with homework, for lack of a better term. I mean, you have to read, you have to learn. There's always going to be new things being discovered or translated, or it's always changing. But yeah, Balder, he's essentially, I feel like, not that he wasn't, not that he didn't exist or wasn't venerated, but I definitely think that that was sort of Snorri Sturluson's Jesus figure to help connect them to that pantheon. So,
and there is some research that can be done on Balder, and it's no one really knows if this was a venerated god or not.
right. The only three gods that we can truly, I believe, that are really proven to be actively venerated are Thor, Odin, and Freyr.
Yeah.
Because Uppsala, and we have history and records of that happening.
And there's still towns and cities named after these gods that were around before the Christianization of Scandinavia.
Right. So. And then, like, even the next guy we're talking about, Bragi, this will be a good segue. Like, you can see a picture or a carving from 1,000 years ago of a guy standing there with a harp and go, oh, maybe that's Bragi. But
or it's also just Solvik.
Right, it's it's either Geldir or Einar, dude.
Yeah,
I just want you to know that if Einar and Geldir aren't singing in Valhalla, miss me with that shit. I don't want to go. I don't want no, so the next one, Bragi.
Yeah.
Read this one. You got it pulled up. Read this one.
Okay, so Bragi is a wise, beautiful, articulate figure in Norse mythology. I can't read English. I'm terrible with it. Okay.
You want me to do it?
It's okay. No, I got this. I'll power through it. The listeners are gonna know. All right.
They're gonna have a stroke.
Yeah, this is gonna sound like a gut shot dog running down a holler. I'll start over there. So Bragi is a wise, beautiful, articulate figure in Norse mythology, celebrating as in the creativity and inspiration, often depicted with a harp or musical instruments. His wife, the goddess Idun, best known for her regenerative fruits, which give the gods their everlasting youth. Another Christian thing, if I will say so myself. We learn that we learned this in Luxina, one of the stories talking about how the meat of poetry was transferred over by the god Odin as he turned into a swan.
And how Loki's a little turd burglar sometimes.
Yeah, stealing apples that turn them into mortals or immortals. But we are also told that he's a member of the Aesir gods in Snorri's Gylfinning, which is this is the tale of this story. He was recognized in the story as the greatest poet in the 44th stanza of the Poetic Eddas in Grímsmál. Historically, Bragi was the oldest skald whose work we know of, and it wasn't until 100 years after his death that we would appear in mythological gods. So
this again is going to Snorri's. I believe it's more in the Prose Edda, where he starts trying to just say that Odin and Thor and all these people were just people that lived and died and then were venerated as gods after the fact.
Which is not an uncommon practice. I mean, we could actually look to Christianity for that one, with the ritual of creating Jesus into a deity, the sharing of his blood and
the
flesh.
Martyrdom,
Exactly. And there's the same thing that's with Freyr. A lot of people believe that there's actually still a burial mound that holds Freyr's body in it. How true that may be, I don't know.
That is not for us to say.
Not for us to say. I didn't bury the man. So keep in mind too that Snorri Sturluson's Poetic Eddas was written 500 or 600 years after the
The Christianization of
Well,
Scandinavia.
well, no, it's in their book, Heimskringla Saga, not Heimskringla Saga. Yeah, Heimskringla Saga. And so that's where a lot of this originated from them having human attributes. Like Snorri played off of that diss track that the Romans did, but at the same time, he had a little bit more of a personable relationship because this was his ancestry. So he didn't just completely shit on them like Saxus Grammaticus did. Yeah, that not Heimskringla. It was Saxus Grammaticus.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
Saxus
excuse me.
Grammaticus was the one
The
that put
distract.
the that he made them all into people and
People, and then that's the same one where I don't know if you've read on this story, but the story of the horse's phallus that the family
yeah,
would give around the table and give thanks and prayers to.
yeah,
That if you got a good stomach, you probably should read it. But if you don't have a good stomach, you probably shouldn't, because
yeah,
that was really graphic and just downright nasty. But either way, digressing off of that, take in consideration that a lot of these poets kind of played off of each other because during the time, only the higher ups still were literate and could write and read.
right.
Even in Old Norse, even though
Yeah, I mean
written,
everything was spoken. There was
yeah,
very few people could read, write. It was all passed down orally
and
from generation to generation.
and if they could write, they thought of it as magic.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Um,
which it really is if you think about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So right. So anyway, back to sort of bring us back to Braggy here. Very articulate, creativity, inspiration, music, poetry. Uh, yeah. So I mean, I think that kind of sums up
and
Braggy.
also would like to play off of like one of our older videos that we did on our offerings. Um, this kind of brings full circle back to you and your poetry and how you listen to music while you would do your give your offerings and do your bloats. That probably has a lot to do with your relationship with Braggy. Braggy is notorious for, if you have a relationship with him, giving you that inspiration and that creativity and seeing the world in a more poetic lens. And
Yeah.
that's probably why I've never been so poetic myself, other than reading Edgar Poe. Um, but that's just me. I like the darker shit.
That's cool, bro. That's cool. But yeah, I think I've always found like a sense of like peace and like I've found oh what am I looking for here? I've found like sort of like a calling in music, like a whether it's getting your adrenaline going or calming down or um just being able to meditate or clear your mind. I think that music, at least for me, really helps with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna skip a couple because I want to, at least for the first part of this video, we'll see how far we get. Now I want to kind of stick to sort of the main well-known gods and goddesses here. So let's go to Frigg.
Big.
So it says here, Frigg is the primary goddess of the Aesir tribe in Norse mythology, and aside from the Vanir goddess Freya, she is the most important of the Norse goddesses. She is the mother of Balder, the wife of Odin, and her home is Finsalir in the marshlands. She is most known for her role in the death of Balder, where she makes everything in the cosmos swear to never harm him, all but the mistletoe that would eventually be used by Loki in his murder. In the 26th stanza of Lokasenna, Frigg is taunted by Loki for having slept with Odin's brothers Vili and Ve during her husband's exile. She responds to this by claiming that if Balder were there with her, she'd have Loki killed. Frigg was a widely revered goddess in heathen times, most likely noted as a goddess of women, relationships, and possibly love. She was also seemingly well known outside of Scandinavia, with her Latin counterpart being the goddess Venus.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, I feel like I just need to read this again. Like, when we give these attributes to the gods and goddesses, it's not like this is the god of this, that, the other.
And I feel
These
like
are,
Rome and Greek mythology is really like that.
yeah,
Like
they
you,
are, but like with these are just it's like attributes you'd see in a person. Like, lovely people, people who are great with relationships, and people who aren't. These are just attributes that we can kind of firmly account to this person and or this entity and be able to have a better understanding.
Right, and I think that building on top of that, I think that a lot of, at least the way that I would imagine it, is I feel like probably the way that these gods were venerated during the pagan Scandinavian era would be day to day life. I feel like it would be a lot more casual almost than Christianity would have been, or especially around that time,
Mm,
where it's more so just things would happen in life and they would associate it with certain people because those were the characteristics of that deity.
yeah.
Like something chaotic happens or something, you know, trickster Loki, like brave warrior Thor, like, and it's not, that's just because people associate Thor with that brave warrior protector doesn't mean that he's the only deity that is brave or that's a warrior or that protects people. Or wisdom in Odin, like Odin is notorious for seeking out wisdom even to his own detriment, but he's not the only god that's wise, and so it's really like it's sort of tough to put them in categories like that, but that's what we're
Especially
doing,
with
I
all
guess.
the overlap.
And the
overlap, yeah.
translations and the writings and the all of the history that was destroyed over time, and it's just, yeah. But right, so beauty, relationships, women, love, yeah.
Ye Also magic. They didn't really cover that, but like she was a seeress.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I think I'll jump to the next one.
I'm gonna
Heimdall.
go, yeah.
I think Heimdall would be a good one to hit.
Yep.
So Heimdall is a very important member of the Aesir gods. He's best known for being the watchman of Bifrost, which is the rainbow. Um, being the protector of Asgard and its enemies, and it's also very. I'm also skimming through this. I'm not really going to read word for word, just because I know a good bit of Heimdall. He's a mother of 9. He's got 9 mothers. But he's also contributed to having the best eyesight out of the gods. Allegedly so great that he could see grass grow from thousands of miles away, day or it does not matter. He also holds the horn that will sound off on Ragnarok, which is the Gagala horn. So the idea behind him being omnipotent watcher, because there is a lot of, now I shouldn't say omnipotent, but at least an all-seeing god, as far as his hindsight is concerned. He's also contributed to birthing a lot of humans. A lot of the first humans,
Father of the social classes.
yeah, and the social classes are from Heimdall. That's why you'll see in a lot of written text.
The beginning of the Voluspa.
Yes, in the beginning of the Voluspa. They talk about the greater and lesser children of Heimdall. He brought in this social class to this construct of order and civilization to these people. But there's not a whole lot known other than about Heimdall.
We also do have a Ragnarok tale from him as well, where he kills Loki, Loki kills him, they kind of cancel each other out, where he's, and I think that speaks to sort of how, like, he's sort of order in a sense, and then Loki's chaos, and they cancel each other out, kind of a yin and yang sort of thing. At least that's my take on it.
Kind of like Thor and
Jormungandr.
Jormungandr.
Yeah.
But yeah, with him, with Heimdall being said, a lot of people will say, all his eyesight and this is just a representation of God and understanding it, and that could be the case. But Also think about these peoples at the time. Like they would have had somebody watching their towns, watching their cities. Even if it's just a homestead that they had, they would have had somebody in the local area that was watching out for people who were looking to do bad. And so I think that's why Heimdall has really stuck around for so many years, because there is a heavy presence and his importance and role in this day to day culture, even today. Like I know those of you who've been in military or done that, and even people who've just gone through like ROTC probably ran Firewatch before. It's a very important thing, and and the way that I take away from it is I'm sure some of these people may have called upon him for his eyesight and to bless them with the forethought of looking past what it is that they're looking at, if you catch my drift, maybe in a more metaphorical sense, trying to stay a step ahead from your opponents, if you will. But we also know that he has a horse. Heimdall's horse, Groptopper, Gultopper, I'm going to be murdering all, living in Himningborg, which is near the Rainbow Bridge. And this is the horse that he will ride once the beginning of Ragnarok appears and he blows his horn. So, again, not a whole lot. There's probably like 2 occasions in which he's actually brought up, and not really too much is known about him, but we do know historically from the sources and just from um, archaeological digs that there were people who venerated this god in their household, probably as a protector spirit or a warning, if you will.
What's cool about you talking about the whole all-seeing thing is I literally wrote that down as soon as you started talking and you mentioned that, and I literally wrote like or I wrote that down, and what I wanted to say was pretty much exactly what you said, where
Yeah.
I think that they did sort of take it and spin a little bit more of that Christian all-seeing God. He knows what you're doing all the time, so you better be good. Like that's bullshit. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that that was the case at all. I don't think that I definitely think it was more of these people were warriors. There was always some people have to sleep, right? And so there's always someone that's sitting there watching, keeping an eye out for trouble. And the fact that he always sees trouble and he's sitting in Asgard watching for trouble, watching for the beginning of Ragnarok. And it's I don't think that he's sitting there watching you, waiting for you to sin, and he's gonna that's really just not it.
And it is mentioned too that he is one without sleep. He does not sleep, and he will find his first rest after Ragnarok when he dies after killing Loki. So that is another thing too. It's not mentioned here on this sheet that I'm looking at, but I do remember that being in one of the sagas. He is one without sleep. So,
right.
Emphasizing on what me and you agree on.
Yeah, the Watchmen.
The way I see it.
Yeah. So the next one, this is one that could be arguably mainstream or not, but he is mentioned at least enough in let's see. I can't see which one it is, but it's whichever one where they're talking about Balder. Hodor. The one that kills Balder. So the story of Hodor is quite sad and tragic. He's one of the Aesir gods, being one of Odin's sons, and according to Snorri, he is blind. Loki takes advantage of this blindness by discovering Balder's one weakness, mistletoe. Loki forms a projectile from a branch of this young plant and deceives Hodor into throwing it at Balder, ultimately killing him. Story goes that the gods were all having fun with Balder's invulnerability, striking him with weapons and finding him completely unscathed. Loki then taunts the blind Hodor, offering him a chance to get in on the action by giving him the mistletoe and steering his aim. When the beloved Balder dropped dead, Hodor was initially unaware of what he had done. He would subsequently be killed by Vali, the son of Odin, and Rindr, when he was only 1 night old.
And we should probably also mention too that apparently this was a fun drinking game for the gods to just constantly throw
Right.
shit at Balder.
Right.
This isn't just a one-time thing that this apparently was like a nightly routine for me.
Right. It's just like, oh, it's Tuesday. Let's see if we can fucking kill Balder. Right.
Oh god.
That is crazy, dude. But yeah, so Hodor, not a whole lot, but he is mentioned in, again, what fucking, hold on a minute. I need to figure out what story is this? It's not Locusina. It's, you know what? It's not going to tell me, but
it was in Snorri's account, so probably
it was in
Poetic
the
Edda.
Poetic Edda. I 100% know it was. I just don't know the saga that it was in, but that's okay, whatever. It's in the
it's
Edda.
that's going to be a common thing here, boys.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
like I said, this is just something we sort of wanted to talk about and brush up on. This is probably the least thought out and least on the rails episode that we've done.
No
But
prior research, no really
none.
orientation to what we're doing. We're just
Just-
kind of raw dogging this bitch.
Yeah, just our experiences and sort of what we've taken away from our time reading and studying and practicing. So, yeah, Hodor, not a whole lot, but he killed Balder. So,
Yeah, big sad.
yeah, big sad.
Big sad, yeah. Unfortunately. But he was blind, so I mean, like, who the fuck would have let Loki do that in the first place?
Right, who lets the blind guy get a bow and arrow? Like, that's
Yeah.
insane, dude. That's like,
I mean,
duh.
it sounds like a great party, but I mean, other than that, like, he's shit. He killed Balder.
Dude,
Everybody
right.
weep.
Right, everybody, except for one motherfucker. All right, you want to go to Loki next?
Yes.
I'll let you handle this one.
You want to? Yes. Okay, Loki. No, not the Loki from Marvel. Y'all can catch hands. Okay. Loki. There's not a whole lot to be said about Loki as being an actual deity, let alone being revered or actually worshipped. It was probably taboo to worship this god during the. If you think about it,
I would see that too. I would, because yeah,
as the chaotic force, like you wouldn't have seen people giving offerings to the Jotun.
right. I think it was more of in like more of a good exists so or order exists so chaos must exist. Just like Fenrir, Jormungandr,
Yes,
Skoll, Hati, Loki.
which are all children of Loki. Jormungandr, Fenrir, and Angrboda. These Hel is also a child of Loki. Now Skoll and Hati is Fenrir's children, and also Loki is also a mother, so he's not really a dude as much as he is a female because he was also a shapeshifter and fucked a horse. Well,
It's
was
like
fucked
a
by a
whole.
horse.
It's
That's
a
a whole
thing.
thing, yeah.
Like,
But
it's
you won't see it on Mother's Night in the Yule celebration. Somebody, I'm giving a drink to Loki. Like
Right.
you wouldn't see that, but technically, yes, he is a mother because he did birth Gleipnir. Wait, not Gleip. Yeah, Gleipnir.
I think
Or
so.
that's
Yeah,
his-
the
that's his
six-legged
spirit.
horse, right?
Yeah, the six-legged horse or eight-legged, whichever it is. Yeah.
Eight-legged horse. I can't remember, but dude,
Yeah,
fake
there's-
pagans.
Oh yeah, L, big L. There's a lot of names. Yeah, there's a lot of names here, boys. This is not something that you're just gonna pick up in a year or two. So
Right. At the end of the day, I'm here for the experiences, man. Like I
yeah,
don't.
exactly. But he is very much known as an enigmatic trickster of Norse mythology. Like, if it wasn't for Loki, the gods wouldn't have the weapons that they do. Like,
There wouldn't be
Mjolnir.
Ragnarok.
There would be no Ragnarok, but Balder wouldn't have died. There would be nothing to chase the sun and the moon or across the skies. There would be nothing to. There'd be no Helheim, so we wouldn't have a place for an afterlife for those who die of old age. There wouldn't have been. Oh gods. I think Freya wouldn't have even been in the Aesir realm in the first place.
Yeah.
There would have still been a war between the gods of the Aesir and Vanir,
Right.
which historically was known to be the first war ever created. Was when Odin casted his spear, um, Gungnir, Gleipnir's his horse. He's got a lot of nears.
It's not Sleipnir?
Sleipnir, yeah, Sleipnir's his
Sleipnir is
horse.
the horse, yeah.
Sleipnir's the horse, yeah. Fake pagans. Oh god, I gotta brush
Dude,
up on my shit.
we're gonna get cooked for this one, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
this one's gonna have come with a whole lot of hate mail.
But yeah, I definitely think that Loki was more a personification of like just chaos. I mean, I at least from the Eddas, he sort of embodies everything that the Norse looked down on. Oath breakers, cowardice, throwing everyone else under the bus just to save himself, selfishness, you know, it's he really, I think, you know, obviously from Snorri's perspective, being a Christian is sort of that devil figure, but I think that even from a Scandinavian point of view, like from those times, I think that he was definitely seen as this as just chaos. And
hmm
you know, I definitely think that maybe something bad happened to people and they were like, oh, Loki's being a shithead again, you know. But I definitely am with you where I don't think anyone had an altar to Loki in their house like
Yeah,
that.
that just wouldn't have been the case.
Yeah.
But also too,
But
like,
also we don't know. You know,
yeah, we don't know.
we
Yeah,
really
we
don't
don't
know.
know. We weren't there. We weren't burnt by the Christians. Um,
Oof.
but
Oh.
I also take it as a way of a reminder, and I'm pretty sure maybe someone during this time may have seen it like this, but a reminder that even in order, there is still going to be chaos amongst them. You know, you can't have true order. The utopia is just not going to exist. So I think it was also kind of like a reminder that, you know, if you didn't have good men in this social construct in this city or village to stand up and say enough is enough when the powers have gone too chaotic. That was a huge thing with Thor. There's multiple occasions in the sources where Thor has been wanting to kill Loki for gods know how long. Like,
Mm-hmm. And
he,
Odin made an oath with Loki saying that he would never drink if Loki was not welcome at the table.
yes,
So like there's obviously a reason for that. And I'll even go over into Christianity for this one. Because believe it or not, I am fairly well versed in the Christian faith. Um
really.
yeah. Like the whole reason that God allows bad things to happen is because there is no good without bad. If everything was just good, then nothing's good. It just is.
Yep.
You know, and I think that that's definitely sort of the same. I think that's sort of a modern take on this very old practice where there has to, it's yin and yang. I mean, this spans a million cultures across the world. There has to be a balance of good and evil, light and dark, order and chaos. And I definitely think that Loki is that chaotic force again personified. I really, in my practice, and I'll really sum this up again at the end, but I don't really know how much the gods are people, more so they're a force or a belief or less tangible
Yeah.
than you know, like I
They definitely have their traces of omnibenevolent. I mean, they're going to do what better suits them.
right, and that's
Just
the
like
other
any
thing
person would.
too is I probably should have started with this. It is very widely accepted in Norse paganism that the gods are not omnipotent. They don't know everything. They're not only doing good. They have very human qualities and very human characters. They make mistakes, they fuck up, they don't know everything. Um, and so they're really, you know, I think that's the big difference is you're not praying to something that knows what's going to happen to you, that always has your best interests in mind, that's always going to do the right thing, that knows everything that's going on in the world. That's just not the case.
Yeah, a lot more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really more so open to interpretation than Christianity would be. All right, who's next? What do we got next?
Nana. I say Nana. Unless you think that's a little less known.
I think that's pretty.
I
That's
think-
pretty. That's pretty obscure, buddy. That's not a whole lot. We can read into it real quick. Go ahead.
All right. So obviously, Nana is the wife of Balder, and the mother of their son, Forsti. Forsti.
Forsetti?
Forsetti, yes, Forsetti. not Frosty the Snowman, damn it. Okay. Anyway, she's a goddess that was written in an account on Snorri Sturluson. We do know that this goddess was practiced and is still practiced till this day, religiously. She does her husband does die by the hands of Holder, of course, but hurts her grief that everybody kind of hung on to in antiquity. It's this understanding of this is the entity that someone would call upon when they have intimacies or issues with intimacies in their marriage and relationships. This is a motherly entity that is notorious for unwavering loyalty, and is also on the same funeral pyre as Balder. She sacrificed herself with her husband so that they may not be separated, even in death itself. So you see it a lot, especially in Sweden and Denmark, but there's still like actual people who practice giving to Nana, and there was even after the Christianization, there's accounts, according to Saxos, of the Danes keeping up with Nana after the Christianization, or before and after the Christianization. So this one goes back really, really far, and also where we get the feel that Nana was an actual person, and so was Balder. We don't know, of course, if this was factual or not, but it's one of those deities that is veiled in mystery just as much as it has actual history to this name. So Nana, to me, is the goddess that you would call upon for better understanding, for that kind of loyalty. Is a deity that has such an overwhelming sense of compassion, loyalty, and love. This deity is just that. I mean, it's the personification of true feminism. If you ask me, I'm a man. I don't know. I can't speak for women, but this is what you would think when a man would daydream about the future wife that they know nothing. They would see someone as a figure of Nana. Or at least I would.
I also think that there would be a lot of power as far as like someone in mourning reaching out to Nana or having some sort of
that connection to that spiritual world. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So we're well past the halfway point here, so we're gonna kind of kick it up, and of course now we've hit the one, Odin.
The true. The one.
So,
the OG.
The OG. So we're gonna
Was he the OG, or was that Ymir?
That's, it could be Ymir, it could be Mimir, it could be arguably Thor. I mean, you got a lot, but Odin. So, lot to unpack with this fucking guy. So, we've got, the one eye. He's always hunting wisdom, insight. He has the Hall of Valhalla. He brings the Einarjar there, the spirits of warriors, to fight for him at Ragnarok. He's the father of magic, He has the two ravens, Hugin and Munin, traveling the 9 realms, returning to him with news and wisdom.
Gary,
He's
Freaky, Gary, Freaky.
right, yeah.
What?
So,
Dogs, good boys.
of course, the good boys, the good boys. He has the 2 wolves, which is very interesting because wolves were seen as like very taboo in Scandinavian culture. His name roughly does translate to the Mad One, so he's it. I think that he is so prominent, and obviously he is probably the god that we see some of the most as being one of the big 3 of being venerated traditionally in Scandinavia. We have tons of sources of that. We have tons of archaeological finds of that. But I think that, at least in my opinion, is partially due to the fact that he is the blend of order and chaos. He seeks to find order through chaos, or at least through means of chaos, where he's hanging himself on Yggdrasil for 9 days in order to learn the runes, or he plucks out his eye for wisdom, or like there's always some sort of balance, some sort of chaos in the seek or in the search of order.
And I guess it is important to note too that the people historically that would be practicing a relationship with Odin were either of the elites, like wealthy men, or a certain class of warriors known as the Ulfnar, or the Ulfedin plural, which translates to the wolf wearers. It's a wolf cult, if you will, and it was very taboo. It was kind of like a ritual rite, something along the lines of they had to go to like a wolf's cave and actually adorn themselves with the afterbirth of like wolf matter. Really weird. It's really worth reading.
It's really just it's barbaric or savage or whatever, but like the Berserkir were a big thing back then as well, having a fylgja, having some sort of animal spirit that aids you in battle or takes you to the afterlife and helps guide you through this realm, and that's a pretty powerful thing. And they,
but interesting enough, the Berserkers weren't actually welcomed into towns and cities. The Ulfnar would go and leave from these villages and towns, but they would still be welcomed back into the town because like they still had a sense of order about them within their own chaos. And I feel like that plays off to what you had said about him finding order through means of chaos. The Berserker was just the full animalistic rage almost, and no one wanted that in their space. Hell, even before the Christianization period, there was written laws in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, even the Isle of Man, outlawing berserkers and their practices in social spaces, like actually in the public.
Right.
But
so
they never had a problem with the Ulfnar.
Interesting.
That one I kind of went into I do practice a little bit of the wolf cult myself. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm an Ulfnar. Oh, I'm a elite warrior class wolf wearer. No. Do I have a wolf pelt? Yes. Do I give offerings to Fenrir? Not often, but when needed. So there I did go more of an in-depth dive on that cult, and it does originate around Odin. It's a cult of Odin, and the Mad One, Ulfr, which would be the Old Norse word for crazy.
I think that cult also, I just want to kind of bring this out there. Cult is like a really loose term as well. Really, it's in this tradition, it's just used as like a sect. Like it's a group of people that kind of went against the grain spiritually and did things that were seen as more taboo. So it's not like Jonestown or Waco or right. It's not some fucking like that's a term that's really been spun, I think, nowadays through a Christian lens, and I don't think that that was the case back then. It was really just more seen as like a sect of the spirituality that practiced something that some people thought was kind of weird,
Yeah.
which I guess is
Also, off of that, would used to view the word cult as just an abbreviation of culture. In a
shit.
way, it's a type of, yeah, literally.
Oh
So I mean, like,
shit.
that's where you'd get that type of culture from, would be these people practicing that cult.
That's pretty heavy. I never thought of that.
That's
We could do a whole episode just on Odin and just the sources and sagas and really dissecting that. But let's see. Of course, we've got Thor. We do have Sif, but I mean,
I think she's known more than none, though.
yeah. Look, she's got the lustrous golden hair. She is the
Thor's
wife of Thor, right? That's yeah. Loki cuts off her hair. Thor wants to kill him for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got it. So
Ooh, Soul and Mani. You want to do that one?
yeah, let's just kind of I want to kind of keep it brief because we are at 50 minutes here. So
Okay,
we've
bet,
got
yeah.
quite a bit to do. Honestly, we could just break it up. There's just not enough Von here to do a whole episode on, honestly,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So
That's up to you. We keep running and gunning, or if you want to try to
let's
break it up.
just paraphrase. Sol and Mani, sun and moon. They're personifications of the sun and moon.
Which were actual deities to these peoples during the time.
I mean, of course. I mean, the sun is life, right?
Yes.
And the moon. If we didn't have any sort of science or any sort of anything to explain what the moon was, it would freak me the fuck out too. I'd be like, "What is that?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it.
And also, I think it's really interesting to see it because a lot of other cultures view the sun as a masculine body, but in Norse culture, it was flipped. Sol, the warm embodiment of life, was adorned to more of a feminine caricature, and Mani, being a man,
Opposite. It is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Soul is the man, and Mani is the daughter.
Really.
Yeah. Look, from all of the text, that's what I had gathered too. But
I've always
recently-
heard it vice versa and was backwards.
Yeah, here it's saying Soul is the son, like SON, and then Mani is the daughter, which.
Maybe.
Yeah, hold up. Nah, I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, because reading through it a lot of it, I've always read that Saul
I have too,
was a
yeah.
feminine entity, and anytime I've ever done anything with these deities, I would always have to give those attributes to them.
Yeah, I redact my statement. This website's tripping.
Redacted.
I'm with you on this. Yeah, I definitely, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's always how it's been. Thor, done. All right, Marvel. He's got the hammer. He fights the demons. Iron Man. Spider-Man and shit.
Oh my god.
We're going off the fucking demon. This is what happens when we record shit late at night, dude. There's just zero fucking. Okay. This is a Loki podcast right here. This is just chaos.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, Thor is one of the most well-known and revered gods in Norse mythology. He's the protector of Midgard, the protector of the people. He's strength, and he has Mjolnir, the mighty hammer, the pendant that most of us pagans choose to wear. I don't want to say it's our cross because it's not. That's not.
But that
really,
is where it come from, though.
It
It wasn't until
but-
Christians started getting involved, and they were like, "Well, we want to wear something to show our faith," and so that's where the hammers come from.
I will kind of go on a slight tangent about this. I heard, I believe it's Norse Magic and Beliefs. Shout out that guy. He's the goat.
He's a goat.
Where he said something that has always stuck with me, and it honestly has sort of changed the way that I view the Mjolnir, again, Thor's hammer, is that whenever, obviously, I said this at the very beginning, where a lot of these sagas and a lot of these stories are explanations for things that people don't understand. And he points out that if you close your eyes and you listen to a heartbeat, it sounds like a hammer on an anvil. And so that there is and animals have a heartbeat. Most living things have some sort of heartbeat, some sort of life force, and that this hammer sort of represents that life force and that beating. Um, yeah. So that's a pretty interesting take. I think that's really cool, and I definitely can agree with that.
Hell yeah, I never heard that one. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful, peaceful way to look at it. And I think that really was what symbolizes, in a short form way, what paganism is finding creative ways to describe things that we all deal with and that we all experience. But yeah, so I don't. We could go into Thor for hours, but again, we're just here kind of. I would like to do episodes on each deity at some point, but again, I just want to kind of. I want to do a baseline so that for future episodes, whenever we talk about these deities, people that don't understand can understand.
Yeah.
Tyr, I think that's another good one. I'll let you handle that one.
All right.
That's kind of your. That's
Yeah. Yeah, another one of my patrons. So, Tyr's predominantly contributed to the losing of his hand to Fenrir. It was in this moment when they were actually able to trick Fenrir into being bound. They made a game out of it, kind of like how they would throw weapons at Baldur. They have a really awesome sense of humor, and I like it a lot. But as Fenrir was found after being born, they tried to make games. What could hold Fenrir down, and the promise was, if he did get held down, that they would obviously let him go. Which another factoid where Odin is always lying.
not always, not like Loki.
Odin lies. Loki won't lie. He'll just fucking do some stupid shit as a prank and fuck everybody up.
Right,
Odin will lie to your face, straight up.
Okay.
That's my takeaway from it. Some people might scald me for that, but just bear with me here. So, Tyr actually raised Fenrir like a son, and Tyr loved Fenrir. At least from what I've gathered in the stories and sagas.
He was kind of the one that vouched for him while everyone else was thinking of him as a monster.
Exactly. And so when they were trying to chain him down with the new magical chains, Fenrir looked to Tyr and said that if I am to be bound by this, I would like your hand in my mouth to ensure that you do actually untether me if I cannot get out. And so, of course, they did not let him out like they promised. Tyr lost his right hand to Fenrir. Tyr's also contributed to as a justful god. He's the god that you would call out to when you were unjust, when something's been done to you that's unjust.
Council.
He's the council. He's the idea that he's the idea
justice
that in this craziness
way.
In this world, that this is the ideal pinnacle of a masculine entity. This is what we strive to be: humble, straightforward, mentally clear, but willing and actively standing up for what is right and what is just for the people and for the wronged. Make note that it wasn't just him standing up for people who've been wronged. He would also stand up to people who did wrong. In a couple of sagas, there's mention of Odin doing what do you call it? And you go to a court and they give you a punishment. Yeah, a punishment, right? He'd give a punishment, and it was over the top or outlandish, and Tyr would be the one to grab him by the shoulder and say, well, hey, think of it like this, this isn't just for him either, as much as it was unjust for you to be done this way. And that's why too he's contributed with the Tiwas, the rune. It looks like an arrow, because it was a power
Pointy
of
T.
truth. Pointy T, yeah. It was a rune of power, of truth, of protection, but also being just and right with yourself. Like when I hear Tyr and I think of Tyr, give an offering to Tyr, I see that old school kind of tombstone vibe. Like this is the hardy man that you to in a situation that is willing to give every to ensure the peace and to ensure justice.
Right, he'll give you a hug when you need it, and he'll give you a sword arm when you need it.
Yeah,
for sure. And I honestly, I think that we've got Uller, but cool. Like Uller, winter skiing, archery.
We need to
hunting.
come back and talk about Vidar. Vidar, not really a patron of mine, but
Go ahead. There's only 3 Vanir we're gonna talk about, so.
Yeah, we haven't even touched the Vanir.
There's only 3 of them that are really prominent.
Yeah. So. Well, Vidar is not so predominant either. Like, at least not modernly. Like, not a lot of people know who Vidar is. Vidar is who will inevitably kill Fenrir. He's the one that slays Fenrir after Odin's death. He is known as the Silent One, the deity of vengeance. He has this magical boot, and it historically, which I really like this, historically, people would actually give the soles of their shoes when they would fix them, or even just when they were not fixing them, or they would cut off bits of the sole of their shoes to give to Vidar, so that he may use it to strap onto his boot when he steps on the jaw of Fenrir, pushing his sword into his mouth. Kind of grim, yes, but he is he in the way he is the heel of the gods that steps on the throat of those that did wrong to him. But keep in mind too, he is one of the deities that actually survives through Ragnarok, and alongside like Balder or Magni and Mjolnir. So that kind of could also be another indie window of Christianity, and Armageddon and the New World Order after it. But he does tear apart Fenrir's mouth, allegedly in a ferocious rage, and because he was there, watched his father be devoured by Fenrir, which if I was Fenrir, I probably would do the same.
Yeah,
he was tricked and lied to when all he wanted was love.
Order and chaos, Yeah. You have to have a balance.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, so on to the Vanir. We've got Freyr, and Njord. So, you want to start with Freya?
Yeah, man. So Freya, everybody knows Freya. Everybody loves Freya. This is where your Sleeping Beauty and the Seven Dwarfs come from.
Yeah.
That's a video for later. I will go into details about that. A little shit talk, but I love Freya. She's a patron of mine. Obviously, Freya is the daughter of Njordr. Njordr is the world. It is Mother Earth. This is also where we get the word yard from. Jord. That's why you would call it, when you're at home, you have a front and a backyard. That's an actual like pagan terminology. Just so you know, there's some more latent paganism there. But she is contributed as one of the most important goddesses in Norse mythology. Especially being the highest Vanir goddess and being embodied into the Aesir as a god of fertility, love, and magic. Not only that, Freya's hall, Folkvanger, is another hall just like Odin's Valhall, Um, she's also the leader of the Valkyries that appear in many different poems that take their pick of the dead bodies in battle.
She also gets the first pick of the
Yeah,
dead
she
bodies
gets
in
the
battle.
first pick of the best warriors. Not a lot of people know about that. I'm sure there's some diehard skinhead out there that really doesn't fucking like that. And
Suck it.
eat a bag of shit, dog.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but like in in this in the understanding of Sidr and magic in its whole in its entirety, Freya is the goddess who understands magic in a more bountiful way than even Odin does. Odin had to give one himself to his eyes, or his eye, and many more things throughout the sagas for him to better understand. And time again, we find Odin coming back to Freya for inquiries on magic being more ladylike, because there is a lot to talk about Odin being a cross dresser as well. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but in this time, it was unmasculine for anyone to practice magic. Now, I don't necessarily see it that way anymore, especially in this more modern day and age. But there's a lot of connotations during this time where these peoples, men in particular, who would practice Seder would tap into more of a feminine ideology and personality. So your first type of cross dressers, because still today there's a lot with practicing in magic and the connection to magic itself. You're dealing directly with the Norns, the web of weird and Orlog, or fate and destiny. You're physically altering the fabrication of space and time around you. The only entity on this face of the earth that can alter with that so heavily will always be a woman. Spiritually, they are more endowed, and they are the only physical people who can bring life into this world through their own body.
Yeah.
So it was important for me to say that. And I'm not trying to be a bigot or whatever, discriminate on them. I don't hate on them, but there is a difference between that and a sexual preference or an idea of who you are as a person, an identity. This wasn't an identity for them. This was a way of them tapping into their physical realm in another way, if that makes sense. It probably sounds like a lot of woo.
Well, it's a lot of, like, again, order and chaos. You have to have
Yeah.
the male and the female. Like, you have to have the Tyr, and you also have to have the Freya. You know, you have to have the strength and the justice and being able to put your foot down, but you also have to be able to clear your mind and have that softer side. Too much of anything's a bad thing.
Of course.
Yin
But
and
I
yang,
also
right?
should say Freya is the goddess who brought magic to the Aesir. Before Freya came to the Aesir, they did not have Seder. So very, very important role here with this deity. Now that we're out of the political shit, do you want to
Yeah, all right.
go to the next? Freyr?
Yeah, Freyr. So, Freyr, also known as Yngvi, he is, you know, again, I'm going to say the most important traditionally of the Vanir gods. Freya is kind of a gray area. Like, she ends up being traded over to the Aesir, carrying her magic over to them. So, I feel like she's sort of typically seen as Aesir, but whatever, that's here nor there. But Freyr, fertility, prosperity, well-being of the land, as well as, I don't want to say war, but he, again, just like pretty much all of the male deities, he does have that aspect of like honor and necessary violence. So, son of Njordr, brother of Freya, And yeah, you're god of the land, god of the harvest, god of fertility. Again, that was a big thing. If people traditionally were trying to have a child, they would give offerings to Freyr.
And crop yields.
Right, right. So,
Big
and
time
two
crop
very
yields.
big things for people in that culture in a time where sickness and plague and, um, you know, disease sort of ruled the land. I mean, they didn't have modern medicine or anything like that. And then, bugs get into your crops, your entire crop for the year's gone. It crops your food and you repopulating were two of the biggest things in the world at that time. And so obviously he played a very big part in the culture in that era. And then we've got Njord, father of Freyr and Freyr, kind of he's sort of again a gray area because he is the god of the sea to an extent. I think a lot of people try to see him as that Poseidon figure, and I don't really think that that's as much right, at least from what I sort of take away from it. I think he's more of, I don't think he lives in the sea and has a trident and talks to fish. I think I like to think of him more as like a guy that walks along the shore and looks out over the sea and
The
watches it in a
unrelenting
way.
force.
Right.
Yeah.
The calm of the sea, but also the anger of the sea. And again, not again, but something that a lot of people don't think about is animals in the ocean were so much bigger back then because you didn't have overfishing and you didn't have any sort of environmental issues. So things in the ocean, when they don't run out of food and they're not cramped into an environment, will grow as exponentially. I mean, unendingly. So there is no telling, these people that sailed from Norway to England, there's no telling what they saw in those waters. And I mean, I bet that would be terrifying. Any of the thalassophobia people in the out there listening to this, it'd be a bad time for you to be alive because the stuff that would be out there in the ocean, I'm sure, would be terrifying.
Especially if you're going Vikinger.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, you're out there for, a week at a
Months.
time, 2 weeks at a time. It'd be brutal, but yeah, I think that he also has sort of a connotation with wealth as well.
Abundance.
Right, abundance and because again, this is a culture. Everyone wants to talk about the Vikings. Everyone wants to talk about the war that was really just a small part of this culture, and I think that's one thing that a lot of the Thor bros and the Valhalla guys kind of miss out on is like, yes, that was a part of the culture, but we keep going back to you can't just be one thing. You have to have the good and the evil, the light and the dark, the feminine and the masculine,
Yeah. And it's also worth noting too is like those raids didn't really start coming about until Christians started cutting off trade routes into Indo-Europe, you know. So when you start seeing those trade routes start to dry up for these peoples, they were already traveling by sea before many other cultures were. But on top of that, they had a respect for that unrelenting force that is the ocean.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
But all right, man. I think that sort of covers all of the main kind of vanilla deities. If we want to, we can come back and cover some more. But
Yeah, we'll come hit it with a mod pack.
yeah, I think that at least sort of covers and explains stuff to people that may not understand, at least so they understand what we're talking about going forward. But yeah, guys, if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe. Shout out to our co-host Tyler.
Whoop, whoop. And soon, hopefully, Hectic Heathens channel will start having some more bushcraft and maybe a little bit more benign stuff. So if you're into that, keep an eye out. I got to get some batteries for my GoPro. But other than that, when it goes, you'll see a lot more of my personal practices and just me goofing off in the woods. So
There you
hopefully
go.
Connor too. I'm sure he'll love to join me.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I guess without further ado, we'll see you on the next one. Skål, boys.
Bye.